Hi friends, my name is Sky. I'm 17. I've never had to pay to fly somewhere on a plane, and I'll never have to. I can fly to any place in the world for free. How am I able to do that? You will find out when you hear my story. When my mom was pregnant with me, my parents were living in Africa because my dad was working there. My mom wanted to give birth in her home country. She decided to go back home a month before her due date. My dad would take some time off from work and join her there 2 weeks later. You might not know this, but the airline companies have a rule. You can't get on a plane if you're over 36 weeks pregnant. My mom was 35 weeks or 8 months pregnant at the time, so she was able to get on her flight without any issues. The plane took off at 6 a.m. At first, everything was going smoothly. At some point, my mom went to the restroom. There, she realized that she had some light bleeding. Of course, she panicked. She got out of the restroom and told a flight attendant about it. There were no signs of her going into labor yet, but my mom was really worried that something might happen to the baby, that is, to me. The chief flight attendant made an announcement just in case. One of our passengers is 8 months pregnant. She is having some issues. Is anyone here a doctor or a nurse? She asked. When no one answered, they figured there was no health worker on board. Soon enough, their fears came true. My mom called the chief flight attendant and told her the contractions had started. That meant that she would soon be going into labor. So I had decided to come into this world a month earlier. Thankfully, the flight crew training included instructions on what to do in circumstances such as this one. They started to prepare in accordance with their instructions right away. You know, at the front part of the plane is the first class section. It's the most luxurious section of the plane, and passengers pay a lot of money to sit there. One of the most important features of the first class seats is that they can recline up to 180 degrees. That means each seat over there can be turned into a bed. Even though there were some signs, it wasn't quite certain that labor was about to begin, but the cabin crew still had to take some precautions. They cleared the first class section, transferring those passengers to the other part of the plane. Some of them made a fuss about it, but they had no choice because those were the rules. Then they reclined one of the seats and laid my mother down. After a while, the captain came over. "We are currently above the ocean. We will be able to land in 5 hours. There are no health professionals on board. I know it's not up to you, but it would be great if you could hang on until we land," he said. My mom smiled. "I might be able to hang on, but I don't think the little girl inside can do it because she is incredibly active right now. If you ask me, she will soon want to come out," she said. As it happened, in less than an hour, my mom's water broke, which was the most important sign that labor had begun. The flight attendants were rushing back and forth to and from first class. One of the passengers got worried that something was wrong with the plane. She called a flight attendant and asked what was going on. The attendant told her that a passenger was about to give birth at the front of the plane. She asked, "Is there a doctor with her?" When she was told that there wasn't, she said, "Take me to her. I'm a gynecologist." Apparently, she was sleeping when the announcement was made. That's why she didn't know about it. This, of course, was a great surprise, but do you know what the real miracle was? This doctor was volunteering in Africa, teaching people in rural areas how to help women go through labor without medical supplies. Needless to say, this was exactly what my mom needed at that moment. When the doctor introduced herself, my mom couldn't hold back her tears because she was so scared something might happen to the baby, that is, to me. She was really relieved to hear that there was a medical specialist on board. After examining my mom briefly, the doctor announced that labor had begun. Just like in the movies, she asked the cabin crew for stuff like hot water and a hot towel. I don't know why these things are needed during labor, but if any of you do, please let me know in the comments. I was born exactly 2 minutes later as the plane was flying at 30,000 feet. My mom always tells me, "You never made me suffer during labor. I just pushed once and there you were." The flight crew was deeply relieved when they found out that there were no complications during my birth. The captain made another announcement letting everyone know about it. "We have a new passenger on board. Congratulations to both the baby and her mom," he said. Everyone was so happy. They clapped and cheered for a long time. The cabin crew offered champagne to the passengers. Even though I was born 5 weeks early, I was a pretty healthy baby. My mom wanted to name me after the doctor, but the doctor said, "Can I confess something? I never liked my own name," and asked if my mom would name me Sky instead. When the plane landed, there was an ambulance waiting for me and my mom. They immediately took us to the hospital. After a series of tests, they saw that there was nothing wrong with us. Since I was born on a plane rather than in a hospital, it was the Civil Aviation Authority that gave me my birth certificate. The certificate says born aboard a plane at 30,000 feet as the place of birth, but my current passport says place of birth, the ocean, because a plane birth is very rare and it doesn't exist as an official category. So how come I can now fly around for free? It's time to tell you that part of the story. First of all, let me break it to you. It's not true that people born aboard a plane get a lifetime pass for free flights. That's a myth. In the past, some airline companies did give presents to babies born on their planes, but these consisted of a limited number of tickets. As far as I know, no one else was given an unlimited lifetime flight pass other than me. You may ask, what's so special about you? It's just luck, really. This man you see on the screen is the general manager of the company that owns the plane on which I was born. He is an incredibly nice person. He calls me on my birthday every year without exception. This lovely general manager and his wife weren't able to conceive for a long time. They were going through treatments for years, but nothing was working. Thankfully, his wife finally got pregnant. The rest is really interesting. This woman and my mom gave birth at the same time, down to the minute. So their daughter was born in the hospital and me on the plane at the same moment. The man was very moved by this when he found out. It can't just be a coincidence that a baby was born aboard one of our planes at the exact same time as my daughter. This is definitely a small miracle. I can't just ignore that. I want to give the baby from the plane a lifetime flight pass. But they decided to keep it a secret to prevent it from becoming part of the company policy. Otherwise, they would have to give the same present for every in-flight birth. If you noticed, I didn't say the name of the airline because they made me sign a non-disclosure agreement. You're probably curious about how much I've been taking advantage of this incredible opportunity. It wasn't much use to me when I was younger. I wasn't able to travel on my own at that age. I had to be accompanied by at least one of my parents. Since they didn't have access to free tickets, they had to pay for flights. However, since last year, I've started to fly by myself, and this has completely changed my life. We played a game to make my first solo flight unforgettable. My mom got me a globe. They blindfolded me. My dad spun the globe, and I stopped it by putting my finger on a random spot. Obviously, I was so curious to see what I chose. When I opened my eyes, I was thrilled. The spot I pointed to was Denmark, and this was one of the countries I wanted to see the most. This is how I ended up flying to Copenhagen on the first free flight I took on my own. So far, apart from Copenhagen, I've only been able to travel by myself once more. That was a domestic flight. I went to visit my grandmother for her 75th birthday and came back the same night. It made me so happy to be able to make my grandmother's day. I'm already planning the trips I'm going to take in the future. I made a list of places I want to see the most. Of course, it's only my flight that is free. I have to pay for everything else. I need to have some money in my pocket, even if I'm staying at the cheapest places possible. This is why I'm always saving part of my allowance. Next year, I will go to Japan. If I have any money left, I also want to go to Cuba. Every birth story is special, but mine is truly amazing. I wanted to share it because I thought you might find it interesting. I hope you liked it. Thanks for listening to me. If you like stories like this, you can subscribe to this channel now. That way you will know when new videos come out. Bye!
Hi everyone, my name is Kaylee. I'm sure you'll be very surprised to find out how old I am. What do you think? I bet you guessed wrong. I might look like a 50-year-old woman, but in fact, I'm only 15 years old. That's right, I said 15. What's even weirder is that when I was born, I looked like an 80-year-old. I look this way now because I'm getting younger every year. And it's not just my looks. My health is also like that of an older person. Just like my appearance, my internal organs are old too. But thankfully, they are also getting a little younger day by day. The reason for this is that I have a very rare genetic disorder. They say that only 1 in 20 million people have it. Since the world population is roughly 8 billion, there are at most 400 people who have this condition. However, many people with this condition die young because it comes with many health risks. Like I said earlier, it's not just how we look. Our organs are older too. We are struggling with diseases that people usually develop when they get older. This is why, according to scientists, my making it to age 15 is nothing short of a miracle, and the credit for this goes to my parents, who are both doctors. I managed to survive this long thanks to their hard work and advancements in medicine. I think that my life story, which I'm about to share with you, is quite inspiring on many levels. As I just mentioned, both my parents were doctors. They actually started dating when they were in college, but since med school takes a long time, they weren't in a rush to get married. They decided to have a child when they were older because they were so busy with their work. My mom had a normal, full-term pregnancy despite being older. She didn't encounter any problems, that is, until I was born. When everyone saw me, they were shocked because I looked like an 80-year-old. My skin was all wrinkly. I had a couple of white hairs on my head and 2 teeth that were decayed. Since my voice was very deep, I sounded like an old person when I cried. Instead of screaming and crying like a baby, I was moaning the way old people usually do. Tests showed that my internal organs were also worn out, just like my appearance. My heart wasn't very strong. My bones were too weak. My lungs, kidneys, liver, and all my inner organs were in really bad shape, as if they'd been used for many years. Since this was such a rare disorder, at first they couldn't figure out the reason for it. After doing intensive research, my parents learned that this was a genetic disorder, and unfortunately, there was no treatment for it. They still had lengthy conversations with experts on the subject. As a result of those conversations, they understood that the only cure for it was time. According to the doctors, there was a high probability that I would develop diabetes, hypertension, or cancer, diseases that are common among older people. However, if I could manage to stay alive, I'd go through a reverse aging process. What does reverse aging mean? Normally, people get a little older with each passing day, but the opposite would happen to me. I'd be getting younger every day. Finding out about this gave my parents hope. They would do their best to keep me alive as long as possible and allow me to get younger this way. And luckily, they've been able to do this successfully up until now. As you may have guessed, I had a very difficult childhood. I don't just mean all the health issues I had to deal with. I got used to them with time. What really upset me was other kids staying away from me. There are a lot of things I can't forget. For example, there was the time my mom and I went to the mall. I was only 5 years old then, but I looked like someone who was 70. My mom took me to the children's play area at the mall. There was a ball pit with 2 girls in it. They were throwing balls, having fun. At first, they didn't notice me, so I climbed inside, picked up a ball, and threw it their way. When they finally saw me, they suddenly screamed and left the ball pit crying. I was so young, I couldn't possibly understand why I scared them away. Of course, now I don't blame them. Imagine this. I was their height, I acted just like them, but I looked like their grandmother. It was so normal to be scared of someone like that. But since I didn't know about my condition, it upset me so much that all the kids were running away from me, and I didn't have any friends because of the way I looked. As I was getting older, I was starting to look younger, but I still looked like a 60-year-old woman when I was 10. All of my hair was still white as snow. Thankfully, the wrinkles on my face and my hands were disappearing day by day. Most importantly, I didn't have as many health issues. To start looking normal, all I had to do was to survive, because every morning I was waking up as someone younger and younger. Also, by this time, my friends had accepted me for who I was. So I was in a much better place emotionally, too. Sure, there were the occasional losers whose idea of having fun was making fun of me. At school, there was one group of boys who were obsessed with me. They would find a way to bother me every chance they got. For example, when I was chatting with someone, they'd come up and say, "Say what again? Speak louder, I can't hear you," mimicking an elderly person. Or they would mock me by pointing to the apple in front of me at the cafeteria and saying things like, "Do you have teeth? Can you eat that apple?" I wasn't saying anything back because all they wanted was for me to react. I decided there was no point in getting upset by them. After a while, when my friends began warning them, they finally knocked it off. Last year at school, something funny happened. A younger girl came up to me. First, she apologized for disturbing me. Then she said, "Our history teacher gave us homework about World War II. Where were you during the war? What do you remember? Can I interview you for my assignment?" You get it, right? The girl thought I was old for real. In the beginning, I thought she was making fun of me. But when I saw she was actually serious, I burst out laughing. You might have calculated from what I've told you so far that every 5 years, I get 10 years younger. That means I will look 40 when I am, in fact, 20. When I turn 25, I will look 30. And at 30, I will look like a 20-year-old young girl. Sounds pretty good so far. I can't wait for those days to arrive. But what's going to happen after? That's what really scares me. If it keeps going like this, when I'm 35, I'll look like a 15-year-old. At 40, I'll look 10. And at 45, I'll look like a 5-year-old kid. Everything will be reversed. I mean, my peers will start to shun me because I will look the same age as their kids. Of course, even though physically I will look like a kid, mentally I'll still be an adult. Maybe because of this, they will keep treating me normally, as they would a 40-year-old. It looks like I'll have really interesting problems in my life as I get older. For example, I want to go to medical school and become a doctor like my parents. Think about it. You make an appointment at the hospital. When you enter the room, you see an 8-year-old kid wearing a white lab coat. When I say to patients, "Hello, tell me what's bothering you," I don't think they'll start talking to me as if everything were normal. Now that I think about it, I guess being a doctor is not the best career choice for someone like me. Another issue I'll have in the future is related to having kids. Now just imagine for a moment that you are my child. Your mother looks like a little girl, although she talks and acts like a normal adult. How would you react to that? I can't even imagine it. Do you think my kid will take me seriously when I say, "Do your homework, finish your dinner," or "enough video games for today"? How will he handle my getting younger as he gets older? Will he like having a mom that looks the same age as him, or will it be bothering him? And the real question is what happens once I turn 50. According to the calculations, I will look like a baby when I am that age. In reality, we have no idea what's going to happen because nobody with my condition has ever lived that long. However, because I'm quite healthy, there's a good chance that I will live to 50. I wonder what will happen. I'm so curious. For example, will I lose my ability to walk because I will have the physical features of a baby? And also, since babies don't talk, will I have to learn how to talk all over again? There are hundreds of questions to which nobody knows the answers yet. I can only answer them by staying alive. There's actually a movie that talks about my condition, although it's old, so you might not have seen it. It's called The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Brad Pitt plays the main character. The protagonist of the movie is born as an older person and gets younger as time goes by, just like me. It's a wonderful movie. I highly recommend it. It might help you to better understand people who have my condition. But I didn't like the ending because once the guy, Brad Pitt, starts looking like a child, his mental age goes back to a child's level as well. He forgets everything he lived through, everything he learned. He even forgets how to write. He starts behaving just like a child. His friends end up treating him as a kid. But I think they wrote it this way simply for the script to make sense. I don't think in the future my mental capacity will go down to a child's level. If that had been the case, I would have started talking the day I was born. I think physically I will look like I'm 5, but mentally I'll be 45 or 50 years old. Of course, that's my assumption. What do you think could happen? Please write your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for listening to me. You can subscribe to this channel now if you want to be notified when new videos are uploaded. And if you like my story, please don't forget to like this video. Goodbye.